Episode 44 of our Enigmatica 6 expert playthrough. Hey, this is Merc Serene, and in the last episode, if we take a look in here, the computer science section, we worked on the building materials, and we got a lot of these done. Some of these were really resource intensive and required a lot of steps, right? 500 steps. We had to make 5 of these. That's what this little machine is behind us. This is kind of a temporary automation because we never need to make that again, so I didn't want to set up anything permanent. However, today we are setting up something new and permanent. Let's take another peek in the book. We want to work on the construction tools. This construction tool is a kind of similar sequenced assembly. We don't need this to be automated either. This will kind of be a very short thing. We'll use the machine behind us to do it because construction tools are only used for the one engineer school project. We never need it again. However, some things in here are maybe more reusable. The bandages, you can use these, right? They restore health when used. But I don't think we need. I don't really want these. I don't envision myself using these bandages probably ever. So we're not going to fully automate the bandages. But let's take a look and see what it takes to make bandages. They take drop of glycerol, which will be useful in many other things. You can even use it as fuel if you want to. How do we make the glycerol? Well, it is a byproduct of biodiesel. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working on today. We need to make ourselves a fluid mixer. We're going to get biodiesel production going with the drop of glycerol as the side output. This does mean we're going to need some more Enigmatica things. We're going to need to be able to produce more pressure. By the way, this biodiesel is a fuel source for Enigmatica, so we'll be able to create the biodiesel and then utilize it in its own processing plant to help produce more of it. I am envisioning that we're going to place our new building over in this area here. It's going to become a river sort of district, and we're going to be pumping water out of the riverway in order to use it. And to see why, we'll take another peek at the production of glycerol. So we already know that we need the biodiesel, but we're going to need ethanol and plant oil. In order to make this ethanol, we're going to need yeast culture and sugar. And this is where we're going to go. We're going to go with the sugar. We're not going to automate the sugar today. We're just going to get a whole bunch of it and use it. But we will automate the yeast culture, which is going to be coming from water and mushrooms. I think we will try to automate the mushrooms today, but also we're going to get the water. If we use the create pump, this water source should be considered infinite because it's 10,000 blocks or more, right? It's very large. My vision for this section is we're going to build up walls along this side of the river, and we're going to create a sort of factory section. This torch here is maybe marking a spot where I want to start, and then we're going to build a large building here that will be our biodiesel production. We will also have a big tank. I think we're going to use mechanisms dynamic tanks in order to store the water, even though we don't really need to, but we will then store everything else as well in those tanks, the yeast culture, the ethanol, and if we come back in to our quest, we'll see that it's not just that, but we also need to get plant oil or vegetable oil from Enigmatica, which is a thermopneumatic process plant recipe with either any kind of forage crops or any kind of seeds. The crops give 20 and the seeds give 50. So seeds are our best option. We're not going to automate that today either, but it will be coming soon. We're going to be setting up fields of different plants, and so we'd be able to farm those and then ship them over. Down in our basement, I want to show you something, right? So I was playing around with a few different things, and if we take a look, we actually have an autocraft set up now on the energizing orb, and this is actually really, really easy to set up, okay? We're using refined storage. We have an importer over here. You can leave the importer basic. You don't have to change any settings. It won't import unless it receives the redstone signal from this. I think this is very specific only for the Powa orb. Otherwise, you would want to change this redstone mode to require a pulse, because the energizing orb will output a pulse when it is complete. Now, we have a gauges and switches comparator here, and all this does is when this finishes and it does that redstone pulse, it's actually going to output the signal here, and we have a little tiny redstone line that intercepts this signal, comes back over into the crafter. The crafter, okay, has a pattern for whatever we want to use in here, right? For this one, I have energized steel set up. We will eventually be doing more in here as well. But another thing that's important is we have to have the crafter mode on redstone pulse inserts next set. Because if you don't have this, and let me show you something, okay? We'll come over here and I'm going to request, let's do 6 of these. Every craft makes 2, so this will be 3 separate crafts. I'm going to hit start. Whoop. Sorry. I'm going to hit start, and then I'm going to hit start again. So now it should actually be working. If we didn't have this set up with the redstone pulse and everything, it would dump all of the materials in there at once, which isn't a valid recipe, and it would just sit there and not do anything. By having this little tiny setup, it now is automated, right? We can go to our system, we can request things, and it will put them in and handle it all. But there is something to note here. I had to upgrade our power a little bit in order to make this work. Having this extra crafter and this importer was actually taxing our system. But it wasn't taxing our system on this. This is still actually able to produce enough power, right? So what was the taxing bit? Well, we have these basic universal cables, okay? And let's take a look at those real quick. They have a capacity. This capacity isn't actually really how much it can hold, but it's throughput. 3.2 thousand FE per tick. Okay, so if we go over 3.2 thousand FE per tick, that means we're not going to be able to transmit our energy fast enough, even if we're able to create it fast enough. But that still wasn't the bottleneck. The bottleneck was this battery. The energy cell from Powa can only do 2,500 FE per tick. And if we come over here and take a look at our current output, we're at 2,419 FE per tick. This is without anything else attached to it. And if we have any of these machines running, we now can't output power fast enough from our battery. So I've created the next tier, the hardened. It can hold 4 million, so 4 times more power it can store, and it can output 8,000 FE per tick. So our next bottleneck will be these power cables, and if we want to upgrade them, okay, we will unfortunately need to get infused alloys, which comes from the metallurgic infuser, but we're not set up to get, a little bit further into mechanism just yet. And because of this, because of how much power our RF, or our refined storage system is using, I've had to really contemplate on how I wanted to do automation. We will absolutely be using it for more automation in the future, but my goal at the beginning of the season, right, my idea, my thoughts, was that we would actually hook all of the machines up behind us, and every machine, everything we created was going to be hooked up to the refined storage system. And unfortunately, we're sort of not at an ability to do that because we would be using so much power, and we don't have the power creation just yet. We can work towards it, but working towards it means doing other things. And I'm at a bottleneck point now where having automation, or honestly, where not having the automation is really hurting me. So we're going to start changing that. So in this episode, for sure, this is one of the things we're going to do. When we create our biodiesel plant, we're trying to keep automation in mind. We're going to try and automate as much of it as possible. There will still be some manual steps here and there until we flesh more of our network out. So, you can look forward to in the future, in the next few episodes, I imagine, right, we're going to actually be working on a lot more automation pieces and a lot less progression. We're still going to try and get the construction tools done today, and I think we're still going to go for the engineering student meals so that we can get the medium machinery so we can start getting the excavator and a tomb working for the Nebu ingots. But once we do that, we're going to go backwards, and we're going to start working on some more and new automation on crops, animals, probably other things like we need to get aura generation going. We need to get, more automated blood magic. There's a lot of things that we can work on now without refined storage automation. There's just ways around it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. Now, I'm going to go start working on our new river district on our new biodiesel production plant. See you there. This here is the beginnings of our river district, especially for our new refinery that's going to be going in right behind us here. The very first thing that we've automated is our water. Now, this one wasn't terribly difficult to do. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what has been done. First and foremost, when we look at the hose pulley, it should say bottomless supply. That means it's not actually going to drain our river. It's just going to be able to pull water indefinitely. I have noticed some issues with it saying bottomless supply, such as I believe if I shut this off over here, it's no longer going to say bottomless supply. So I'm not entirely sure if I needed to do some work, but if we just take a peek down here, I actually dug this down. I made it a bit deeper in order to make sure that it was bottomless supply. And the criteria for bottomless supply is it has to have 10,000 blocks of water, and it has a 128 radius or distance away from, I'm not sure if it's a distance from the pulley box itself or from the bottom of the pulley, but either way, you're going to want to push that all the way down to the very bottom with a, a crank or anything in order to get down there. I'm just going to leave this crank here. But then once we have it in there, we can attach some fluid pipes, and these ones aren't actually different fluid pipes. If you just right click one of these like copper pipes with the wrench, it'll turn it into glass. And we can see over here that we have, this is the create tank. It holds 432,000 millibuckets, or 432 buckets of water at the moment. We can see it sort of flowing through even though it's totally full. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at how we're getting this in and what we've done to speed it up. Down here, I have 8 of these water wheels to power that thing. And in order to speed it up, instead of using the big gear to small gear and making those ratios that we normally do, I've created this rotation speed controller. And this requires a large cog, and then you can attach to anything. And I just happen to attach it to a small one, so this is actually even faster than the 128 that it's showing here. But you can scroll, and this will slow it down, or you can speed it up. It turns out that 128 is the fastest. If I go one higher, it will be too much for the system, and this cog will pop off. But I think this should be good enough for our purposes. So we'll be able to close this up, and I'm thinking probably an access hatch with a ladder or something in the future, but for now, that's fine. Water is automated. Looking at the next bit in the glycerol production that we need to do, we're currently working on the ethanol, right? So we need to make the yeast culture. So we have the water already. Now we need to get the mushrooms. And I'm going to show you a quick automation I tried that didn't work. Back down here in my basement, this is actually how I've been manually gathering mushrooms, because we do need them on occasion. Way back here, I have this little, it needs to be dark. The dark is on purpose. We're missing one, but this is good. This will show you what these do. So these are called red mushroom, but they're clusters, I think is what they're called, or no, they're colonies. So if I go ahead and harvest them, you'll see each one of them gives me 5 mushrooms. And, I've broken 2 of each, so 10. So here we are, and then we can easily replant these, and they're just the normal mushroom again. And they will grow back up to be those colonies. So I was thinking, let's use this, right? Let's use this for production. Oh, they also have to be on rich soil in order to grow. So upstairs, I tried to create a test sort of automation bit, and you're gonna see it right here. So this was our old original sort of brazier farm for, getting soul shards. I've repurposed it. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work. And I don't know if it's a limitation on refined storage or if it's a limitation on these mushrooms, but let me go ahead and put some light in here. Boom. Also, this is dark glass, doesn't let light through, and this is dark ethereal glass, which lets you, as a player, walk through it, but mobs cannot walk through anything like that. So just in case, this darkness let a monster spawn, they wouldn't be able to leave. This is not plugged in at the moment, but if we take a quick peek, see, this is a constructor, so the constructor will be able to place blocks down, red mushroom, this one is set for brown mushroom, and then over here on the destructor side, which would normally break blocks, I set the red mushroom colony in there. But unfortunately, that's not actually breaking anything, and we'll show you this real quick. Let me go ahead and pull out a single bit of cable. We'll complete the connection. Everything's here, it should work. If I actually break these right now, then we will get new ones planted. So the constructor works just fine, but it's like the destructor isn't understanding what the red mushroom colony is. So instead of leaving this on, draining power for no apparent reason, we're just gonna turn it back off. We might try to revisit this in the future, but we have other options for growing these mushrooms. And I think what we're gonna go for today is modular routers. With a modular router, we could set it up to be a breaker in order to break the completed mushrooms, as long as it can understand what the completed mushroom looks like, which I don't know yet. We haven't tested this. It could work out the same way that refined storage is working in the back. And then with an activator module, it will let us right-click, so it'll let us replant the mushrooms back down. In order to make this modular router, we're going to need to do a little bit of this create sort of compacting, but we need these augment cores, and these augment cores are not actually that hard to make. They take blank upgrades here, which is electrum, aluminum, some wire, or blank modules, energized steel, which we have now automated, some more wire, blazing capacitors, which this is here. We're going to actually work on this right now. We need blaze honeycomb and blaze fiber. Okay, so how do we get the blaze fiber? This is actually the bit that we need to work on now. When we go to make blaze fiber, we need mage bloom, ditch bulb, and blazing blood. In the past, we did use this blazing blood. We got this from smelting down in the smeltery blazes. So I think we're going to want to create a very special one, get a blaze spawner, and have that hooked up there. I just so happen to already have an extra blaze spawner laying around, so we can use that no problem. Now, the real question is, do we want to use another smeltery like we have behind us? That's kind of a manual one. We're not going to use that for this automation. Or do we want to go further and use a foundry? So if we come in here, right, and we take a peek in the tech mechanical mayhem, right, we did make the seared heater. This is the smeltery. But there's another quest in here we never did. Foundry controller. Okay, well, why would we maybe want that? If we come in here, there is a quest down here, Foundry controller. And this tells you it cannot alloy. Well, we don't care about that bit. But thing that we do care about, I think, is its internal buffer is much larger. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what it would take to make ourselves a Foundry controller. A fluid encapsulator with scorched stone and a superheated or a hot compressed steel ingot or iron ingot, and scorched stone. The scorched stone, we actually have to basically melt this from scorched bricks. And scorched bricks are not too hard to make. We need gravel of any kind, magma cream, and soul sand. The magma cream we can actually make. We have slime balls and blaze powder, so I think we're just gonna do that. All right, so down in my basement, further in, there is a little bit of a ravine down here, but this is where our temporary setup's gonna be. I do envision we'll probably have this somewhere else when I've got more time to build a building or more permanent space for it. However, this is where we're gonna have it. So this is the beginnings of our foundry. Something I wanted to point out, I didn't even know this, but when you make your smeltery, you can do you can basically do like a 3x3 in the middle, and then you don't have to fill in the corners or the base. You could actually just start building on the sides. However, for this, we absolutely have to put these in. It will not let you do it otherwise. Go ahead and get that Foundry controller there. 1, 2, and 3. So this, valid block in wall frame. Ah, got it. Oh no, did I miss one more? I missed one more. How about we do this? Aha! We now have our foundry. It is here. This is just see-through glass, of course. This is where our fuel will go, and our fuel is going to be liquid blaze. I would actually really like to build this taller, but it takes quite a bit of materials just to make what we have here. So instead, we're going to just kind of put some other blocks on top, and then we're going to get our blaze spawner like right up in the center, and they should spawn and then just drop straight down in which case they will be melted. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing tested out. We're going to remove our cardboard box off of our blaze spawner, and then we're just going to quickly fill this in so they can't get out. We should hopefully see them begin to spawn. Aha, okay, so we have our first blaze. Now, there's no fuel in this foundry just yet, so it's not going to do anything, but we're going to get it kick-started with a lava bucket. Not exactly fast, but that's okay. So we got 200 millibuckets of blazing blood, and it actually only took 100 millibuckets of the lava. So the plan is we're now going to pump out of our scorched drain the blazing blood into a new tank, right? Probably a mechanism dynamic tank. And then from there, we're going to pump that back out, I think, into this fuel gauge. And that should let us infinitely farm these as long as they keep spawning. And this is just a vanilla base spawner at the moment, so I have to be standing nearby in order for them to spawn, which is the unfortunate bit. But that'll change in the future. Okay, check this out. They spawn, and when they spawn, they come down and they die, giving us blood that goes into our fuel tank, blazing blood, right? And that's going to be used to kill them again. But anything extra that can't go in there will instead come out through here and go into our big mechanism tank, which currently has 1,300 millibuckets in. Now that we have blazing blood, I've got 5 buckets worth in my reservoir. We're going to be able to start making our things for a modular router. The augment core, the blazing capacitor, right? This is what we need to do right here. This blaze fiber. This is what we're going to make right now. We're going to do a whole bunch of this. And when I say a whole bunch, I mean we're going to make like 20 of it. But that's going to be enough for us to start. Okay, blazing blood in. Ditch bulbs and the mage bloom fiber. The ditch bulbs are an undergarden plant, and you can plant them and garden them here in the overworld as well. I just have one growing right now with bone meal, and that's perfectly fine for our purposes, but we will get that in the field once we get to the field. Now that we have our blaze fiber, what we can do is we can come in here, and I'm actually just going to throw the blaze fiber into our system. What do we want to make with the blaze fiber? Well, let's go ahead and come back through here again. We get the blaze fiber. This is what we want to make. So it's going to take 240,000 FE, 1 blaze fiber, and 2 blaze honeycombs. We're going to move that in. This is going to be a processing recipe, and we're going to create this pattern. Pretty easy. We come back over here. We find our crafter at our energizing orb. We slot that in, and we'll just be able to make some now. How about we try making 10? We have enough of everything available. Start. We certainly could still upgrade a lot of these energizing rods in order to speed these processes up, but this is fine for now. Over at our engineer's workbench, if you have the engineer's blueprint, we can make those blank upgrades and the blank modules that we needed to make. And you know what? I think we want to make a couple more of those. We need some more electrum nuggets. Now with our 4 augment cores, I think that's going to be enough for now. We're going to take the rest of the stuff out and just throw it back into our storage system. Bump, 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 bump. Okay, it's all in there now. Let's go ahead and make our modular routers. So we're going to need an observer, a circuit backplane, and an augment core inside of a blazed compacting station. Modular router obtained. I've never used this mod before, so I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but hopefully it's not going to be too crazy. Ourselves an activator module. I think this, right? It says action right click, and I think we also want to get ourselves a breaker module. It sounds like we can use any sort of pick. Oh look, quest complete. Let's go ahead and make like a really, really basic stone pick. Oh, and check this out. It does actually match the pickaxe type that you provide here. Pickaxe, it's a stone pickaxe, but I don't think we care about this, right? It's just gonna be breaking a mushroom block. Okay, I've got some things to show. We haven't actually completed our whole process yet, but we have our water coming in to our fluid tank. This water tank is just going to kind of sit out here, and we're eventually going to decorate up the area out here. But for now, we just have a pipe running over, and I have a very similar system here with another pump that's pulling out. It's very important to note that these mechanical pumps can only interact with blocks that are up to 16 blocks away. So this is kind of over here in the wall, and in fact, I think this is probably gonna we're gonna build up a wall and it's gonna come out to here. So this is gonna go through the ground and then come out of the ground. But here we go. We come up and we come in. So our water is now coming up and in, and it goes down and it deposits itself into a thermo-pneumatic processing plant. So again, right, this is in order to make yeast. So if we come back in here, the ethanol from Pneumatic Craft, here's our yeast. So our yeast needs water and mushrooms. Here we are. We have water coming in through the top, and we have mushrooms coming in from the left. On the left, if we take a look, we have a high retrieval module that has brown or red mushrooms, although it's probably only ever going to use the red mushrooms because that's the one that started in there. And we have a low filter module as well. I don't actually think we need this anymore, but we may actually still need the low filter module, and I'll show you why that might be the case. So when we come up above, okay, this is where our mushrooms are being deposited, and I'll show you how they get obtained in just a moment. But in here, we do have a high extraction module, and the reason why we have this high extraction module is because we are feeding them into these, but it also will feed over here, and that's why we might need the low filter module. We also have a high priority, so it's going to always make sure it can fill a mushroom in here before it puts it in the drawer. You can see we have 61 of the brown, and we have 83 of the red. These do not have any modules in them at all. That the extraction module in here handles that, so it will send them here if it can't go anywhere else. So how do they actually get in there? Well, we have this ethereal glass again. And also, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure my magnet, when I'm in this area, screws up the process. So if you take a look, the brown mushrooms were gone. And I think because I had the magnet on, it like sucked them away and it wasn't able to pick them up. But this is a modular router, and I would love to show you how this works. And I have a ton of modules in here. This is the first time I've ever used this mod, and it may not be the most efficient way to use it. But the important thing to note is it is planting a red mushroom on the front and the left, and a brown mushroom on the right and the back. When the mushroom grows, it's going to become a mushroom colony, but unfortunately it's not going to make it all the way up to, if we look up the farmer's colony, it's not going to make it all the way up to its maximum colony size, which is 5 mushrooms. Yeah, so we just missed it. Oh, and there's another cool thing. So it's going to break it on the first growth. But what that means is when it breaks it on the first growth, it's going to get 2 mushrooms. One that it can replant and one that can go up. This is also maybe not the best or fastest farm. We could probably do something in growing large mushroom trees and cutting them down with Create or something. But I really wanted to try something new and something fun. So these are basically all the same. Okay, we can see we're getting some red mushrooms in from the front and left. And I think because I'm standing here, I ended up picking up these brown mushrooms. So to take a look at this, we have a breaker module front. When I push the C button, it will let me go into the module so we can see it and see how it gets configured. When I come in here, I have a blacklist, okay? We do not want to break the red mushroom. I have this set for match by block, but I think this would work either way in block or dropped items. Another thing that I have set is terminate on match. It will not execute any subsequent modules on this tick if the module did something. I don't know if that's needed. I was kind of trying to combat the thing where it's breaking a mushroom and doesn't seem to pick it up, but I think that's because of my magnet. So I'm not sure that you need this. So anyways, over here you have to specify which direction. So this one's on the front, and if we come over here and look at this one, this is on the left. It's set up exactly the same way. The only difference is this left is checked. Okay, so we have red mushroom front, red mushroom left. We have brown mushroom right, and we'll have brown mushroom back. Okay, so these are very, very similar. And then, of course, these activator modules are all going to be very similar too. When we look at this one's saying it's a whitelist. We're only going to plant a red mushroom on the front side. I still have the terminate on match here as well. You want to make sure your look level is like where the block is, because otherwise look would be like up or down, right? So we want to make sure it's on the look level. It's going to use the red mushroom that it got in the buffer. So when it harvests, it'll put it in the buffer, and then it'll use those to place, okay? So we should be able to go through everything in here. And let's say this broke, right? So if we go dun 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 dun, we get here and it breaks. It's going to stop and it's going to halt, and I believe it's going to come all the way back to the beginning and start again. eventually we get all the way to the end, which is a sender module, Mark 1. So let's go ahead and take a peek at this. This is saying up, and it's just any. We don't care what's in there, anything. It's on blacklist mode, so basically everything's allowed. And what that's going to do is that's going to send things up, and it actually can do it wirelessly, right? It's pretty neat how it can do that. There it goes again. Whack. Okay, so anyways, it goes up, and then our pretty pipes take over from there once it hits the barrel, and it routes to the storage drawers and over into our thermopneumatic processing plant. So, what are our next challenges? Well, the thermopneumatic processing plant needs to have a heat of between 30 and 60 for this craft. I don't believe it needs any sort of pressure, but we need to make sure we can get the heat there. So I think what we're probably going to have to do, okay, is we're going to have to come in here and get the vortex tubes that we have used before, right? These guys, right? They can produce heat, but we're going to have to supply them with pressure. So we're either going to have a pressure system underground, or we're going to have a pressure system like maybe over here. But the vortex tube would take so much pressure, it would just like boost this way past the 60 degrees Celsius. So I've been looking into how can we check how much temperature there is. And there are maybe a few options. We might be able to use a computer to detect the block properties above. That would be the thermopneumatic processing plant, and see like, oh, what's the temperature? Shut things off, turn things on. That might be an option. But one more thing that we have never tried, that I want to try, is a universal sensor. I've never used this highly flexible device, which can monitor a wide selection of block entity and world conditions. So I think this can actually monitor the thermopneumatic processing plant and then output a signal. So what my plan is we're gonna have like a heat network underneath the ground, because this is gonna need heat as well. And then we can route the heat into the different locations based on their needs. And with that, we are totally at the end of this episode. We're probably just slightly over on time, but I feel like we've made some good progress. And you know, I didn't even show these off, but these are the dynamic mechanism tanks. They're like one whole layer larger than what we've used before, and they can hold 576,000 buckets of fluid. So this is gonna be our yeast tank, and this will be our ethanol tank once we get there. So next episode, we figure out our heat problems, and then we're gonna have to move on, and that's gonna mean figuring out how to get sugar into the factory. We're not gonna automate the sugar just yet, so we're probably just gonna have a barrel on top that I manually drop them in, but we will get there once we start working on our automated fields. Once we do all of that, of course, the next major thing to work on, if we come back to our computer science section, will then eventually be all the things in here. So this is where we're going to start working on our field production. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and please look forward to the next one where we conquer the heat problem. Mark Serene signing off.